Welcome to the Infinite and Beyond, the MIT Alumni Show. I'm your trusted host, Rob Kalwarowski, MIT Class of 2010, world-renowned executive coach, author, and speaker. Each week, we are sharing the stories with our friends and classmates, fellow MIT alumni who've taken action to shape the world. We'll share what we've learned, top strategies, and bring our community together to help everyone achieve our goals. No, this show is not officially affiliated with MIT, so any views expressed on this show are of the host and guest only. This show is designed to build a community that trusts, connects, and shares with each other so we can all take action towards a better world. Let's get rolling. Welcome to the Infinite and Beyond show. We're back, the MIT Alumni Show, and we have, of course, another special guest with us, another 2010. Abe Rosenfeld is with us today. He's the CTO and co-founder of Jane Technologies. Abe, thanks for joining us.
Rob, absolute pleasure. Great to talk to you. Great to be on. I'm really excited.
Yeah, it's so amazing to have you. And last time we spoke, it's just, you're such a heart-centric person, and I can really tell that you've dug into your own self-work. So we're going to go there. But before we get there, can you tell us about, where have you been since 2010?
Yeah, for sure. Man, I think it kind of, I would say that it starts a little bit before, just to kind of set the story. I was really lucky to get a awesome UROP that, it was working with a PhD in the building technology lab that was working on a really awesome project that was trying to automate essentially the role of an energy consultant in large buildings. He needed some CS student to just essentially hack into building management systems and extract data, and I was like, that sounds fun. That turned into a startup that I was the first employee at. And when I was your pup out there. When I was thinking about what I wanted to do in my career, I had my sophomore year, or in between my freshman and sophomore year, I had an internship at a really large corporation that I didn't do anything at. I got paid, and it scared the crap out of me that I was never really gonna, I don't know. The complacency really scared me. So from that time on, I was really kind of hunting for different types of opportunities. So when this UROP basically turned into a company and I joined, it scratched a really important itch for me, I think, and it was really fun. I was at this company, KGS Buildings. They're now called Clockworks Analytics, for about 8 years, and eventually went on to lead the integrations department there, really finding my niche in interoperability and integration problems of how do you connect two different systems. I would probably still be at that company today, I would say, because they just taught me, it's just such a great group of human beings, and there's so much kindness and respect and love in the culture, and a really great mission. I probably still would be with them if my brother hadn't called me, and so my brother, his background, he was a West Pointer, was a U.S. Army captain, Apache helicopter pilot. He was a really highly decorated officer, made the tough decision around 2011, 2012 to leave the military, got into Sloan. We've always had dreams of starting something together, and at some point he hit me up with an idea that became Jane Technologies, the company that we founded together. His journey from active duty military life to just kind of coming back to himself was one that was aided greatly by plant medicine, and is really at the heart of why we started Jane. And so here I am at an awesome startup that I really feel an enormous part of, with a ton of vested interest in, and probably the one person that could take me away from that opportunity gives me a ring and asks me to kind of join him on this endeavor. And so, we founded Jane around 2015, 2016, with the intention of building a platform that could provide safe and transparent access to cannabis for all the legal markets. And we've just been grinding ever since, and enjoying the journey, for sure. So that's kind of professionally. Personally, I actually met my wife at a Halloween party where I think we went and hung out with some friends in Baker in 2008. We didn't start dating at that time, but that's when I originally met her. We started dating in 2012 and have just been, partners ever since. And so she's been kind enough to follow me around as we've sort of jumped from place to place around all the startups that I've worked at, really just the two, and landed here in Santa Cruz, California, and just really grateful and feel amazing with where we're at, what we're doing, and what I get to spend my time doing.
Amazing. It's funny you say about the corporate. It's like that's totally a thing.
Yeah.
It's
I
it
got I
yeah.
got paid a ton. It was more money than I ever like made in my life at the time. And then they offered me like, okay, come back for next year, and eventually you'll get a full-time role. And I was like, I don't think I'd ever do anything here. What are you even paying me for? It really scared me because I'm the type of person, if I like something, like if I like a meal, I can eat that meal every day, right? And I think it's the beauty, just talking about my wife again, she is very different. She is the, I like to think about her as like a fox jumping on a stone boulder. I'm the boulder, she's the fox, and I need her to help me explore life and push me out of my comfort zone a lot of times with life. And so I felt if I found myself in a groove that was too easy, I could just 30 years could go like that, you know? Did you have
So
a similar experience?
well, yeah, I worked in corporate engineering for about 10 years. I did mining, then did some consulting, like heavy industry consulting, and then in pipelines. And for me, I always wondered, like every time you'd say something to someone, "How are you doing?" They'd always be, "I'm busy." And I kept always wondering, like, what are these people doing? Like they don't produce. It's like they're not producing a lot of things, but they always say they're busy. And I always wondered, like, what do people do all day? But yeah, now as an entrepreneur, it's like, no, I work like I did at MIT.
Right. Just scrappy and getting it done.
Abe, what are some of the ways you've been pushed outside your comfort zone recently?
Man, it's funny. It's I don't know if you found this with your own sort of entrepreneurial endeavors. It kind of comes in waves. And like the minute you're like, I got this, something comes through and just kind of punches you in the gut. And I think for me, through the tenureship of Jane, really, I've gotten really comfortable with that. And I've changed my perspective on those types of things as not, challenges that I necessarily need to overcome, but opportunities for me to grow as a human being. And I always, I've come to sort of realize that I'm pretty fortunate and lucky to be in the seat that I am today, helping run a business like Jane, to get these challenges and opportunities that not a lot of people really get an opportunity to face, right? It's like if you're, you know, on a really, really high performing basketball team, for instance, and like that team gets the opportunity to travel around the world and compete against other people and grow and challenge themselves and really excel and just have a different type of trajectory of their own personal growth. That's what I feel. So like specific challenges to me are they stick less in my mind of like, oh yeah, that specific thing was tough. It was more of the perspective and the approach to how I view those challenges and turn them into pretty big learnings and really big pieces of growth and ways to shape me as a leader and ways to shape the company and the way that we approach everything. So, every day there's something, but I've learned to really appreciate that about the role and the opportunity that I have.
It's an amazing answer, right? And that's the like I can tell the amount of self development you've done by that answer, right? And it's the same way we sort of coach it. And for me it's exactly that, right? It's when you find these new challenges, it's that opportunity to take that next step in your development. And a lot of folks, sometimes for entrepreneurs, for high performing folks, if they can't get out of their mind or they can't get out of their self concept of this is who I am, that's when they stop growing. And you see this a lot with founders is basically the personality and the psychology of a person who can get a company from zero and raise money to 10, 20 people is completely different than the psychology and the leadership you need to grow it from 50 people to 200, as well as eventually IPO it. And there's actually research around this. And
Yeah.
so a lot of the work I do with founders is they're in that space of 50-ish people, and they've either got Series B come in the door or they've got a bunch of client work coming in the door. And now they're like, yeah, I need to make this like something scalable, but I need to change because I'm the one who's holding the business back.
It's so interesting, and such an interesting part about starting something is that you are consistently filling a seat that you are unqualified to fill. Like, it's just the nature of it. And that's true, honestly, for like everybody at Jane as we sort of come up. People are, we talk a lot, a big concept at Jane is about earning the seat. And it's really the meritocracy and the way that we approach leadership and growth within Jane is like, get what you put in and you cannot fake it. And people know when you fake it. And if you have a culture that's really honest and transparent and you're able to be direct with people, you can tell people how it is and give them an opportunity to grow into the role in which they really want to perform at. And that's true for the founders, man. You know, I always think that like one of the blessings of founding a company with my brother is that we know each other. We know each other very well. So I can't roll through one day with a black turtleneck and just pretend like I'm some big Silicon Valley CTO that knows everything. He's going to call me out on it. Everyone's going to make fun of me. I can't do it. I have to be myself. And I think because of that, I never tried to be anything else. And that's really kind of, done well for my own, to create the space for me to actually grow by being honest about the areas in which I need to improve myself to make the company successful and to make sure that I'm successful.
Amazing. Abe, something that, right, obviously has been on your journey, right, is the transition from doer to leader. Can you share what that journey was like for you?
Yeah, it's a tough one. It's a really, really tough one as somebody who just loves solving problems, like just loves solving problems. Basically addicted to solving problems, right? And I think that it was funny. We took like a Myers-Briggs test early on at Jane, and then I took it on when I went from like the R&D organization from being like 10 people to like 40 people. And my personality of the way that I sort of like answer these questions like very much so changed in a more direct way. So the biggest area of growth for me is it as I realized that it's not that I couldn't do the things necessary to evolve and grow as a leader, but my biggest fear and blocker in that is confrontation and directness. And I always struggle personally with letting people down, and I always take things, that are really personally, and it's something that I've had to really kind of work on and recognize that the burden of leadership is to be able to have the hard conversations, not to be a dick or not to be mean, but to be honest and fair with people. And, for me, I still do. I still like doing, and I still keep space for myself to do, even if it's like an hour of coding a week or something. I still like to do that. I like to scratch that itch because it makes me happy and it keeps me very, very balanced. But when you start to lean in to leadership and you start to see other people succeed because of your, I wouldn't necessarily say guidance, but your collaboration as a teammate, that is far more valuable to me personally and sort of scratches a different itch. And then when you look back on the impact that has at the people at the company, and in our case, the industry of the cannabis industry, you start to really realize the sort of, the importance of the stewardship that you have in trying to do this right and grow this the right way. And so I think that that's sort of like evolved where, some opportunities you see and you're like, I want that. And some opportunities you see and you're like, fuck, I have to do that. I think the leadership for me started of like, I gotta lean in there. But as I sort of leaned in and started getting more comfortable and feel unbelievably fortunate to have such a fantastic mentor in my brother as a leader who's led people through a lot tougher things than starting a cannabis company, right? I've really grown to enjoy and find value. And then for me, the benefit is like personal growth through doing is pretty limited. Personal growth through growing as a leader is you're pretty infinite.
It's funny, like, of course, I've done a lot of interviews with leaders, and the ones with military backgrounds, I mean, they take training on how to be a leader, and they, of course, it's like literally part of what they do all the time. And it's like they have such a structured idea of what it is, and like they've developed it. And it's like, I actually think they're some of the best leaders I've spoken with. Of course, I don't see the ones that are asshole bosses,
Right. You're
and
sample
I'm
size.
sure there's a lot of those, but
Yeah.
it's like the ones that have approached it in this human centric way, they're phenomenal.
Yeah, and I think that's a really, what I've seen with my brother is take his military leadership training, couple that with the healing that he's done through plant medicine, and really bring a lot of soul into the way that he does it with the tools that his military training has provided. I mean, the dude he's a company commander in Iraq. He was responsible for a lot of people and a lot of things. That level of proving to yourself what you're capable of and what you're doing is really valuable from an experience standpoint of when you walk into any type of situation, right? It really kind of sets you up to be able to keep things in perspective, keep calm, which I think is a really important aspect of leadership. When stuff hits the fan, can you stay within yourself and really be there for your team in an honest way? So yeah, I agree. I see that as well with a lot of the veterans that I work with in general, and the ones that I've seen lead companies.
When you were at MIT, did you feel like you were the only one who didn't belong? Do you compare yourself with successful classmates? Do you feel like you're constantly needing to do more to feel like you're enough? Many of us feel that. I felt it too, but you don't have to feel that way anymore. You can get better results, achieve more, and feel more fulfilled doing it. I can say that because I've done it, and I coach my clients to do it too. I use scientifically proven methods, including internal family systems, values-based leadership, and habit-building techniques to transform your psychology and your life. These trusted strategies will get you results quickly, in some cases, even in our first session, and they'll last you for years. Now, my coach isn't just about learning. It's about taking action and creating results. Results that'll boost your confidence, unlock doors to opportunities you never thought possible, and equip you with strategies that only a select few ever master. But here's the thing. The longer you wait, the more opportunities slip by. Imagine what your life could look like just weeks from now. Having taken the first step. Take action now. Go to robkalvarowski.com and book a complimentary call with me. I mean, it's amazing. And Abe, I want to take a little bit of a tour into obviously the plant medicine, right?
Yeah.
And not necessarily just plant medicine. So just for folks out there, like if you totally want to watch my TED Talk where I talk about it more, but I struggled throughout my career with asshole bosses, and that led to depression and a suicide attempt in 2013. And I spent a long time trying to find what was right for me. And like I had done, I don't know, 20 different versions or not 20 different psychotropic medicines. And I'm still a fan of them. I am on them right now. Something that was really helpful for me was ketamine treatment. And of course, this was with a psychiatrist in an office, right? This was all on it was completely legal. And there's also like a lot of research out there on like MDMA and psilocybin as being very helpful for folks with addiction or PTSD, these type of things. Like, do you want to talk a little bit about like that side of what you've learned over your life?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it really started, like, I talk about sort of my journey within cannabis, like really being the first plant medicine that I was ever introduced to is like, back in the day, like a lot of adolescence, my experience with cannabis was very sort of singular. I would get absolutely ripped, smash a couple of Choco Tacos, and fall asleep, right? And like, that is an experience, no doubt. What changed my perspective was my brother's journey. So when my brother got out of the military, he had never tried cannabis in his life, and for the large part of his life was pretty anti-cannabis in terms of like, the traditional stigmas that you would see, and it was a point of friction for us at times, especially when he found out I was ripping joints quite frequently. But watching the way that it impacted his mental health, how it brought him back being present, which led to him being kinder to himself, better husband, better brother, better friend, and just like relearning how to like enjoy life was breathtaking to me to watch. I had my own like this think of myself as a person of science. I had my own skepticism about the stories that you hear around, things, plant medicine changing people's lives like that. But watching it happen firsthand to somebody that I love and respect so much, my best friend, really, really, really important in terms of my perspective of the plant. And it changed the way that I explored in general. Cannabis is still, my favorite vice because I like who I am when I consume, and I like the way it makes me feel after. I don't think it's not like I don't drink alcohol anymore. I just haven't in like 2 years. You know what I mean? Because every time I do, I just don't feel great. And so that's where it started, was like, okay, this is something that can be a tool. And it's very relative to who you are, where you're at, what you're open to. And I didn't get into psychedelics until, probably 5 years after my relationship with cannabis changed to more of an overall wellness and health approach than a purely like sort of like a recreational vice approach. And then the exploration into psilocybin, which has now I think become my favorite plant medicine in general, has been really remarkable. I think that for me, what it does for me is reset my perspective, really kind of refill my cup of gratitude that can kind of get chipped away with in sort of the ins and outs of everyday life. It's hard for me to take a dose and not really feel overwhelmed by everything that I have in my life and the love that surrounds me just in my home. You know what I mean? And that's a really important ceremony and practice for me to make sure I don't forget, to really make sure I don't forget and keep that top of mind. And so that's the role that it plays for me, but I've seen it similar to you, are the roles that it's really helped people move through PTSD, move through whatever is sort of blocking them and keeping them in the cycles that they're stuck in by changing that perspective in a different way. And it's been fun to be a part and involved in that community in the ways that we are at Jane, but more broadly just as somebody who's very open to talk about it, not ashamed or not worried about what people are going to think, or, oh, can I get a job after I talk about this? But it's a part of life, and it should be explored a lot more. A really great entry, I think, to this topic is Michael Pollan's How to Change Your Mind. Even just watching it on Netflix, first reading the book, I think is a fantastic series on the real science behind it, but also sort of like as a species, human beings, through the course of history, have had ceremonies based in these types of plant medicine rituals and ceremonies that are really important. And we, in the society of the US and really North America in general, have lost that in a lot of different ways. And I think it's starting to see a positive trend and movement towards that in a lot of different, in sort of a way that's really kind of promising to me, I think, as we sort of like find our balance as a society and come back to our presence in a way.
Yeah, 100%. And like, as you mentioned, right, there was actually, I think it was an article, I saw it the other day, but it was like they found residue from a temple in Egypt where they were doing psychedelics, I don't know, a few thousand years ago. So this has been a while, like incredibly a long tradition for a lot of cultures, right? And I guess the one thing, we are not doctors and we're not offering medical advice. We're also not recommending you do anything illegal, right? But there's, for me, I probably am very similar to your brother, actually, Abe, is for me, like I was like playing polo in high school. And so like I had been offered cannabis a few times and I was like, I don't want to do it. Like I was very like single track focused. And then even basically the first time I tried cannabis was when it became legal in Canada in like 2018 or something.
Oh yeah.
And like I was really struggling with my mental health, and I was like, maybe this can help me sleep. And
The
it
number
didn't,
one
it
search
wasn't,
term, by the way, on Jane is sleep. The number
yeah,
one search term.
it was so, I remember I went to the store and I walk in and it's like exactly the guy you would expect works at a weed store. And I was like, hey man, I want to sleep. And he does the like, yeah. And anyways, like that was my sort of experience. But then like like literally in one of my ketamine sessions, like I'm in like a clinic in Edmonton and I'm sitting there and I'm 35 and I'm sitting there going, it just hits me like how ironic this situation is like I did quote unquote everything right.
Mm-hmm.
Like I didn't take drugs. I did well in school. I did well in sports. I got an MIT. I got a job, blah, 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 blah. And now I'm sitting in this chair taking drugs like that are making me not want to kill myself. It's
Yeah.
like the most weirdest thing ever.
Yeah.
But it was like it's transformative for me in two ways. One was to release all the nonsense that I had learned that was holding me into like the beliefs that I was stuck. The other side was like, and this is why I see it just as you, Abe, is for me now it's more about leadership and the possibilities of the future, and where it helps me is like staying on track with where I'm going and like how am I developing that and being clear and in tune with who I am. And I think that's the part that like a lot of folks they're like, well, I don't have mental health problems, and it's like, okay, well that's acute and real and totally like a use for it. There's also the side that I'm approaching with a lot of my leaders, which is it can help you with that connection to more lean into this expansiveness and what you could do and how you are aligned or how you can become more aligned.
Yeah, I never thought of it like that. I think that's a really, really effective way to think about it. And I'm just sitting here thinking about like why is it good for that? I find that like, how often in your normal days are you just stopping and smelling a flower? You know what I mean? And like that to me that's an example of like really kind of being present. And present leaders tend to be really exceptional leaders because they're able to not just sort of like put people in a box and think that they're talking about this and just sort of like move through the steps and move forward. They're actually listening. They're really engaged in a high empathy sort of way. And I mean, for the goal is to get to that spot on 0 grams for sure. I think it's going to take time. It's practice. It's meditation. It's sort of everything that you do in your own development. But what a really just a fantastic medicine that I'm still exploring and learning about myself. And it's kind of giving me that type of opportunity. But also super proud of you, man, in terms of your journey and just a ton of respect and gratitude for the way that you're sort of using your own platform to tell this story in such a vulnerable way. It's important because, I see similarities in the way that my brother talks about it. He reaches people that may not be comfortable talking about these things, and seeing somebody they can relate to talk about them makes it more relatable. And so there's a ton of people who have done the right things, worked their tails off, built everything that they were told they were supposed to build, and are sitting there feeling, okay, well, why don't I feel good about this? And to have you talk about this so openly and about your own journey, to be able to relate to people, or even if it's just one person you can relate to, I think is going to make a massive impact in the world. So kudos to you, man, on your own journey in doing this, but also being open and vulnerable through this platform to kind of do that and talk about it. It's really, really important to share. I'm really happy you're doing it.
Thanks. Yeah, it's something I do because of that. Also, I don't also worry like you
Yeah,
about someone trying to hire me. And
yeah,
I mean, it's not that I may not ever have a job again, but it's like this is who I am. And everything I did was legal. Like I went to a clinic with a psychiatrist who prescribed me ketamine as a medication. Like it's all legal. But it was that thing that got me to be one is to challenge all the old ways that I was thinking and stuck. And
Mm-hmm.
then now it's part of how I'm creating the new things. And I think for folks, it's two things I really want to hammer. One is absolutely if you just like order mushrooms on the internet and you do thing at your house, you'll have a probably some breakthrough thoughts, but it's not going to change your life
Yeah.
because the work is also in the pre and also in the post.
Yeah.
And so for me, when I was getting ketamine, I was also going to therapy literally the day after every single time. And
Yeah.
so we would do it with EMDR, we would do it with internal family systems. The integration was, it's almost more important than the journey itself.
You cannot skip the work. There's no, silver hammer here. You cannot skip the work. Plant medicine is a conduit, I think, for those that are open to it to really have things click in addition to doing the work and really trying to grow as a human being and if you're not open to it, it's not going to work. Just straight up. I've sort of found that about people is like I can't change people. I don't think plant medicine alone can change people. That person needs to be open to change for anything to happen, right? It's not gonna magically do it. So as people go on their journeys, I think they really need to be honest with themselves about like, okay, something needs to change. And when they're at that point, then I think all the stuff that we're talking about and the therapy and the work and coupling with it really makes it a pretty astounding impact.
100%. Yeah. It's funny, actually. Like I do internal family systems with my clients. And as part of how I think about it is like literally there are people who you can see the anxiety is so much that if they ever did, it would just shut it down. And like it's a wild thing. And I actually, not one of my clients, but somebody I know, they went to, I think, was it Costa Rica? I think it was Costa Rica. Anyways, they went to one of these big ayahuasca, like famous ones that like Tim Ferriss goes to and stuff. And it was like her symptoms got worse when she got back.
Hmm.
And it was because it was because of all the work that she didn't do leading into it as well as coming out of it. And it's like I want people to be very careful and go in, like if you feel called to it, probably then it's time. If you're feeling like it ain't for you, then don't do it, right? The other thing is like reach out to me or Abe, like we know legitimate, like I know probably one of the best facilitators in the world. She's a therapist. She has all the training for ketamine assisted therapy, like, and like everything like that. So if you want, reach out to me. I can facilitate that connection, right? But I don't want you to just like find, some shaman called Janice and like go to her apartment. That sometimes can be very inverse to what you're
Yeah.
looking for.
Think about this like medicine, because that's what it is too. And it's really helpful to have a guide or a practitioner or somebody who really knows to help you on this journey and sort of set you up for success like anything. But you're right, like, I've seen people who are just swimming upstream during it and just overriding it and not really submitting to the process. And I think that's when you really find some pretty either neutral experiences at best or at worst like pretty negative experiences.
Abe, of course, before we get you out of here, I
Yeah.
want to ask you, one is, this show is about sharing and also receiving from our community. So what would you like to share with folks that you can help them out if they're listening?
Man, I'm always excited and down to connect, especially with anybody from the MIT community. One of my favorite parts about MIT and the culture around it is just it just allows people to be themselves. That's the one thing that really stuck with me going through it. And in that type of culture, I think really breeds creativity and innovation. It's hard to be creative if you're trying to be somebody else, you know what I mean? And it was amazing to be around a lot of people who were just comfortable being themselves, and it was pretty inspiring and helped me through my own journey of who I thought I was going to be versus just enjoying and loving myself with who I was. And so, like that, I'm down to connect with anybody. If you're starting something, if you're in the middle of it, I have a kindred love for anybody who started anything at any size. It takes a lot of courage. It's the difference between playing music for yourself and getting up on stage and having people receive it at any spot. That is impressive and warrants a lot of respect. So I'm here for it. I have my lessons that I've learned that help for me. If you think that could be helpful to hear about, and I'm also really down to hear about your journeys and just collaborate on it. Where if you're building something now, you're building something at a pretty wild time in society, a ton of factors, and so just a lot of respect there, and I think a lot that we can, if anything, just decompress and talk about, and at best maybe learn from each other and take different things to our endeavors.
100%. And Abe, of course, what's the goal that you're working on in 2025, and how can our community support you?
Yeah, I mean, we're at a really interesting stage at Jane. We raised our Series C kind of at the tail end of 2021, and through just sort of the markets in general, this is our fuel to get to profitability, and so we're marching towards profitability as a company. Next year is going to be a really, really big year for us on that endeavor. And so, I mean, I have just an absolute terrible time asking for help in general. I would say I just am not built that way, so I never really know how to answer this question. But if you're interested in the cannabis space, if you're looking to get involved in some way, I would love to talk to you. Whether that's through investments, whether that's through a job, whether that's through shared connection of something that you're doing that you think we could collaborate on and make something bigger with the two entities. I'm all for it and really excited to chat and connect and curious to see who reaches out.
I'm going to make you ask for help now.
All right, fair enough. It's like a big fear. I just I'm just one of these people that I won't read a manual. I'm just like, you know what? I'm just gonna hammer through it, man. Or like we're at the grocery store, we can't find something. My wife's like, hey, dude, why don't you just ask that dude? I'm like, we got this. I can solve this problem. So I gotta get over that. I gotta work through that. So push me, Rob. Push me to ask for help.
So, actually, for folks, this is an incredible leadership strategy because it builds a ton of trust. Actually, Brene Brown did this research. And if you ask your manager for help, it is the best thing you can do to build trust. Now, of course, Abe doesn't have a manager, but the other side of this is the best way actually for you to start to achieve your goals is you talk about it and you tell people all the time that this is what your goal is. That's why I tell everyone that my goal for 2025 is I want to do 15 keynotes. It's something that then people think. They're like, do I have an event? Do I know someone who's doing like a leadership summit? Do I know this? Let me connect you with this person. It's wild, but it's something that like is an incredible strategy. So that's why it's like, talk about the goals that you have to literally everybody. And that's when folks will naturally help you because we're all good people and we all try to help people that we like, right? So, Abe, bringing it back to you.
Yeah.
How can we help you?
Yeah. Our goal in 2025 is to hopefully hit profitability as a company. In any way in which the community thinks they can help us in that endeavor, I'm down to have a conversation and chat, or even just to connect and share my story. So I want to put that out there because that is the goal. I think once we achieve that as a company, I really feel like we built something special, more than just a great culture, community, a great product. We've built something that can self-sustain. We built a business that could stand on its own, and it'd be something that I think everyone involved would be really, really proud of.
Awesome. Amazing. Of course, for folks out there, so I've dropped Abe's LinkedIn in the podcast notes, as well as you can check out iheartjane.com for more on Jane and what they do. And do you have any other places you want folks to find you?
That's it. I'm in Santa Cruz, California. So if you're in the area as well and want to grab a bite to eat or hop out for a surf or just just kick it. I love in-person stuff. We don't do it enough these days. So if anything, maybe it's a good excuse to come check out Santa Cruz as well.
Amazing. Go banana slugs.
Amen, brother.
Alrighty, Abe, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. And it's always also been great to reconnect since
Yeah,
we
man.
were together in college. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, I remember taking probably 801 together or something, just
Yeah.
struggling through physics. It was great. I miss it.
Yeah. Amazing. So much. Everybody, thank you so much for listening. And we'll see you all next week.
Thanks, Rob.